DAB, digital radio, downloads online. bbc.co.uk/Asian Network. Asian Network Report Special starts now.
The best way for us to find that new star is for us to take our search to them.
I would love to see British wrestling on British television.
You can make in the millions and tens of millions. It's very lucrative.
We now have an industry that is good enough to do it, and we now have the talent that can do it, and we now have the American companies wanting to work with us, and we have the market already here. It can really be massive.
Saturday afternoons back in the late 1970s, I remember watching wrestling on ITV and cheering for Big Daddy and Giant Haystacks. 30 years on, industry insiders believe it's simply a matter of time before British wrestling is once again back on our TVs. And guess who's muscling in?
Currently in the UK, I'd say that 1 in every 15 to 20 professional wrestlers is Asian. And then at the student level, people coming into the schools, I'd say that was probably somewhere between 1 in every 25 to 30. This figure's a definite increase on what it would have been maybe 5 or 10 years ago. From an increase perspective, I'd say it's probably double, if not 3 times what it was back then. At that point, there were less schools and there were less professional wrestlers, but there's been a definite increase in a number of Asians getting involved in the wrestling business.
I'm Bobby Friction, and you're listening to an Asian Network Report special, Body Slamming Asians.
RJ Singh had those. RJ Singh had those. Can we get some help out here? Get those people coming.
Did those citizens inadvertently go in Ligero's face, in his eye?
RJ Singh is one of Britain's top Asian professional wrestlers. He's 5'10", weighs 200 pounds, and by night he's a cocky, loudmouth bad guy.
I'm gonna take it. I'm gonna destroy it.
But by day, he wears a tie, carries a briefcase, and you can call him Sir.
Home market out today, which is Tuesday. When did you do that? Thursday. Great.
Between 9 and 3, Monday to Friday, RJ Singh, or plain Mr. Jones as he's known by his pupils, is the deputy headmaster of a primary school in London.
I think the appeal of wrestling really is, I think it's that whole mixture of action, it's the mixture of the theatrical elements as well, it's that moment in the spotlight. There's, you know, when you're wrestling, there's nothing greater than sort of being in the middle of the ring and you've got the entire audience's attention. Whether it be they're all cheering for you, whether you're booing for you, it doesn't really matter. It's the whole fact is that all eyes are on you, you're entertaining the fans, they've paid their money, so you're really putting on a show for them, and it's such a transformation obviously from who I normally am, and it sort of doesn't usually happen until I've got my ring attire on, and as soon as I step through that curtain, the whole personality changes then, and the character of RJ Singh appears, and being him is absolutely great fun because it's being able to do and say things that sort of Mr. Jones would never dream of doing or saying, but RJ Singh has got absolutely no problems with being absolutely dreadful to people and getting away with it, really.
RJ Singh, Mr. Jones, Ross Jones, call him what you like. He's been wrestling professionally for 8 years. He first got into the wrestling ring back in 2001 at university while studying to be a teacher. But what began as a hobby has now turned into an important part of his life. Today, he juggles his full-time teaching post with wrestling shows in the evening and at weekends.
I tend to keep Mr. Jones, the teacher, and RJ Singh, the wrestler, apart. It just makes my life a lot easier because I do think, even though if all the kids sort of found out I was a wrestler, they'd probably think I was the coolest person on the planet. But I just don't think we'd get any teaching done because I think they'd spend the entire day asking me about it. They are such huge wrestling fans as well, which is always interesting, sitting and listening to them talking about wrestling and sort of in my head not saying anything back, but just sort of nodding along to what they're saying.
Despite being one of Britain's best professional wrestling talents, the only way for people like Ross to hit the big time and become a household name is to get the backing of a major wrestling company like the WWE, World Wrestling Entertainment. It's the dream of every wrestler in the world, and for Ross, this could soon become a reality. Ross has just learnt that the TNA, Total Non-Stop Action Wrestling, one of America's other wrestling giants, want to try him out. Could this be the break he's been waiting for?
I mean, I'd absolutely love to be a wrestler full-time. It would be a dream come true. I mean, I don't know anyone who's not a wrestling fan who wouldn't love to do that.
I've been in the wrestling business for 2 decades, and I can honestly say that there's never been a time like this, as long as I've been alive, for it to really take the next step. The American companies are paying attention to us, TV companies are paying attention to us, big event organisers are paying for us to go to these places.
Alex Shane, ex-wrestler and now a senior trainer who worked with Ross, also heads the FWA, the Frontier Wrestling Alliance. Its main aim is to look after and promote British professional wrestlers, currently around 120 of them. But now there's one major difference. British Asians are not only passionate about watching, they're now prepared to step into the ring.
In 2003, there were no professional Asians in this country on the wrestling circuit that I knew of, but there were 3 students. One of those was Singh, and the other one was another student of mine called Hayde Vanson, who went to the WWE. Now, 8 years later, those guys became professional, and there's at least 10 students that I know of around the UK currently doing shows, so I'd say that's about a 75% increase over that period of time.
The number of Asian wrestlers is growing. They've got into it by being fans of American wrestling, which has dominated the scene after British wrestling was axed from TV.
The first boom period for American wrestling, which was in the 1980s, which was sort of championed by Hulk Hogan, and that inspired a lot of the people who became more experienced professionals and people like myself, promoters now. Then in the late 90s, you had another boom period which was even bigger, which was Stone Cold Steve Austin and The Rock, and that inspired a lot of the students who are now becoming professionals in the scene, like the younger professionals. And then the latest boom period with John Cena, which attracted more children, has now brought people to our training school. So each of those boom periods have created the infrastructure for the revival. So for the first time ever, we have the people that want to get into it, the people who are into it, and the people who are now running it.
And for this current generation of Asian wrestling fans, it's all about one big giant of a man who originates from the Punjab.
The Great Khali!
The Great Khali made his TV debut for WWE in April 2006.
I think one of the main reasons that there is such an increase is because of people like the Great Khali. And he went to WWE, and for the first time he wasn't portrayed as a weak Indian performer. He was actually the big strong guy that was just completely annihilating all the American wrestlers. And I think that that set a new stereotype in the minds of Asians about what is achievable. You know, no longer were they the smaller guy that was getting beaten up, they were the guy that was actually beating up all the American talent.
Although Alex is happy to keep providing British talent for the American wrestling companies like TNA and WWE, his #1 ambition is to promote the British wrestling scene and get it firmly established once again on TV.
I think that's going to make a great difference in the number of people that want to get involved in it, and I think it helps because the passion from those Asian fans is probably because Bollywood is considered by a lot of English people as being a little bit over the top and a little, you know, very similar to how wrestling is viewed, and that's probably why I like Bollywood. So I think British Asian fans seem to have a more complex understanding of the entertainment and showbiz side than probably the British audience, which find that side the thing that turns them off.
My little boy's a fan of Great Khali and John Cena and all the other wrestlers.
My name's Man Rajan, and my favourite person in TNA is Hulk Hogan, and my favourite person in WWE is John Cena. I like to be a wrestler when I grow up.
The wrestling industry in Great Britain always managed to rise and fall based on the popularity of the American scene, and it's only been in the last year and a half where we stood up as an industry and said, well, actually, their second biggest market is the UK, which proves that, you know, we have got a real strong fan base here. And if you look at it from an economic standpoint and base it on the size of the country, we've got the strongest wrestling economy in the world, but we have no wrestlers in this country that can afford a full-time, decent living from it. So obviously there's something that we're missing, and it was structure, and we've now structured how people get into it, or, you know, a way for people to get out of it, what to do when they're in it. And I feel that now we can stand alone as a British industry. You know, we're coming together and we're realising that, you know, we have some worth, we have some value, and if we stand strong and proud and we do what we've continued to do for the last 18 months, that we're ready to have another boom period in this country.
But for this boom period to really take off, the issue of drugs needs to be cleaned up. Alex Shane.
I would say that less wrestlers now have ever taken steroids than did before. WWE will not take people who are on steroids. I mean, that's never happened. TNA, I think they currently have a drug testing policy, or they're bringing one in. The area really is, it's down to us now as the British wrestling industry, because what happens is once you get a job in the American company, you can't take steroids, but to get that job, you have to take steroids to get their attention in a lot of cases, which is something I'm very opposed to. I took steroids for a long time. I was told to take steroids by my trainer. I was only 17 years of age, and it was an ultimatum: take these and wrestle, or don't take them and don't wrestle. And, you know, I took them, and I understand a lot about them. But, you know, I feel that wrestling has become bodybuilding, and now most wrestlers feel they have to look like a bodybuilder. Well, that, you know, you don't have to look like, you know, Arnold Schwarzenegger to be be an actor. But at a time when all action movie stars looked a certain way, a lot of action movie stars were taking steroids to look that way, and it's the same with pro wrestling. So I feel it's imperative that we really push the drama side and the athletic side above the physical appearance side, and if we do that, we can really ingrain British wrestling as wrestling that stands alone without muscles. Wrestling has got this stigma because so many wrestlers have died. You know, 104 wrestlers, I was told, have died in the last 10 years under the age of 45. So I feel that dealing with the steroid issue is something that needs to be done.
The wrestling industry accepts that there is a problem.
The BWC, the British Wrestling Coalition, is a self-regulated governing body for multiple wrestling companies around the UK. It's the only one of its kind worldwide. And the main company it works with is the Frontier Wrestling Alliance. And on there, they'll see the 10 public business principles which we founded the company with and we've stuck to this day. And these business principles include ensuring all our talent, which we're the only company in the world to have done, to set up a trust fund for injured and retired wrestlers, and also to really make sure that the training of wrestlers is done safely and professionally. And I think by having an ethical wrestling company, some of the murky perceptions people have of wrestling would definitely go away.
I'm Bobby Friction, and you're listening to an Asian Network Report special, Body Slamming Asians. So far we've heard that only 1 in every 15 professional wrestlers here in the UK are British Asian. And now the promoters are trying to get them and other British wrestlers back on our TVs. The reality is, if you're serious about making it, America is where you have to be. You need one of the 2 big American companies to sign you up and give you that all-important contract. For our wrestler, RJ, aka Ross Singh, it's crunch time.
I'm standing in the middle of Wembley Arena right now. We've got the TNA wrestling ring set up in the middle of the arena. Empty arena at the moment, except for all the wrestlers around here. The wrestlers are all surrounding the ring, all doing their warm-ups. Now, I'm feeling absolutely terrified at this point, mainly just because this is pretty unknown at the moment, and I've got no idea what to expect. So I think we're being called over by D'Lo Brown now. So
we are looking for that next person.
D'Lo Brown is the lead agent and head of talent for TNA Wrestling. An ex-wrestler himself, he doesn't mince his words. He knows exactly what he's looking for.
I'll be able to know if you can work long before you think you need to tell me. From the first time I lock up with you, to the first time I watch you run the ropes. That's all I'll need to know. If you want to work, you're welcome to come in. If you don't want to work, the locker room is that way. I will shoot with you to a fault. I will tell you right in front of everybody. I'll call you out and go, you're good or you're the shit. So be prepared to hear it. If you already think in your mind, I'm the shit, guess what? D'Lo's going to call you out on it. Ready?
Okay, we had to go for a drill which is called the International. It involves one guy on a headlock. He sends the other guy off the ropes. So what D'Lo's doing, he's evaluating us now, looking at how we're putting on the headlock, how we're running the ropes, when we're coming back, how well we're taking the hip toss to hit the floor. And you really get the sense when you're in there, he is looking at absolutely every little detail.
This tryout is like auditioning for the X Factor. If successful, RJ Singh's life could change overnight. It will thrust him into the global limelight where he could become as famous as Khali, John Cena, or The Undertaker. All currently the biggest names in professional wrestling. It's all about finding that next wrestling superstar. D'Lo Brown.
Oh, gut check, just its whole origins and everything it has become is such an important factor for our company. It is the lifeline for finding that next superstar. And it gives me an opportunity to come out here and see the grassroots and see that next star in its developing stages. So I'm just happy to be part of it.
So what makes a good wrestler? Founder of TNA Wrestling is Jeff Jarrett.
There's 3 things that really go into making a professional wrestler. You've got to have the athletic ability and the in-ring skills. That's the first thing. Second thing is you've got to have verbal skills, being able to promos, whether it be in the ring or out of the ring. And then the third thing is sort of that it factor, and that's something that you really can't put your finger on it, but if you could capture it in a bottle, you could be a billionaire. Because in the entertainment business, the people that have that it factor really connect emotionally with the fans. So it's a very, very tough business. But you can make in the millions and tens of millions. It's very lucrative.
Wrestling's in his blood. It was Grandma Jarrett that got the ball rolling. They've gone from a small business to a massive global brand.
I've been in this business 3 generations now. My grandmother actually got in the business back in 1940s, in the 40s, selling tickets. So she took it as a second job. And then my dad got in the business, and he wrestled and promoted. Like I said, I'm 3rd generation, and just as the world has changed, so has the wrestling business has changed. We're all connected a lot closer, and we've literally into a global business. And, you know, our product is seen over 100 countries worldwide.
Audience diversity is vital for global appeal. The WWE did it with the Great Khali, being watched by millions of people in countries like India and Pakistan. So how will the TNA find that all-important rising Asian wrestling star? RJ Singh.
TNA are missing an Indian wrestler for a start. Obviously, they used to have Sanjay Dutt. You never know, dream come true would be they'd ring me up and say, hey, we've got Sanjay Dutt back, we've got you back, we've got a tag team, you know, we're right there. So you never know that, you know, that could happen. I would love to see more, you know, on TV in America as well, because it is so huge in India. Whenever wrestling stars go over to India, there's riots just with fans trying to meet them. So I often think, well, why don't you have more Asian stars on TV? Because it's clearly a big market over there where people are desperate to see wrestling, and they love to see wrestlers.
Ross is certain that his dream of becoming a full-time professional wrestler will be achieved.
If they rang me and sort of said, right, Ross, we'd love to have you in TNA, I think once I'd stop crying, I'd probably have to speak to my wife first of all and have a really, really long discussion with her about what we do. And you kind of, when you do these things, you sort of think, let's not get our hopes up, but you kind of have this little distant dream of, well, what if it did happen?
But he isn't the only one that wants to make it big.
Oh, my dream. Once again, maybe if it takes me to the top one day, you never know, at WrestleMania, maybe in a couple of years' time I might be there. Who knows?
Jay Patel is 18 years old, and he's been wrestling for just over a year at a wrestling school in Leicester.
Well, I've always been a fan from when I was little, like growing up watching the likes of The Undertaker, Chris Benoit, Eddie Guerrero and likes of them. Been a fan, and I got into it and, never grew up with it. And then, I was looking for the opportunity. Could I give this a shot? And then the opportunity came along. I didn't know Wrestle Leicester was here. When I found out, I was, very happy. There's just a thing about wrestling. It's like, I don't think you can actually explain it. It was just a thing. I always describe it as it was in my blood, It was within me.
But there's another battle he has to overcome.
My family were not very supportive, if you will, of me coming here. They tried to stop me from coming here, and I had to fight to actually get here. They're still not too keen on me doing it, but I have had to fight that. Every time I go home after a Sunday, they'll give me dirty looks, and I just got to carry on walking.
Supporting and encouraging Jay is 35-year-old Jag. 6'5" and an ex-wrestler himself, he's in charge of the day-to-day running of Wrestle Leicester. There's no salary, but Jag's love affair with wrestling runs in the family.
I remember my uncles, my dad, they used to go down to Montfort Hall to watch wrestling. They always telling me stories about how they'd watch it one week and then they'd be down at the box office straight away afterwards to get tickets for the next week. They always remember it as being great entertainment and enjoying it. It was a day out for them. They'd work all week and then they'd go out on the Saturday to watch the wrestling.
I remember the day they pulled the plug on the television.
On Saturday, it's on for the last time after being shown for 33 years. Television bosses say not enough people want to watch it any longer.
My career was just on the big up, It was probably the worst thing that could have ever happened in my career. I'd gone through so much to get where I was.
Robbie Brookside, like many of the other British wrestlers, has now ended up teaching. He's head coach at Wrestle Leicester.
I think the numbers have never been better for people wanting to come. I think now people are starting to be educated into the fact that if you want to be a wrestler and you want to go to America and find your fortune, you have to tap into what you are and where you come from. And at the moment there are probably 10,000 lads with goatee beards and long hair knocking on Vince McMahon's door saying, can I have a contract? And they're trained in the American style, which is very different and alien to what we do here. And as I always say, I have contacts within the WWE, and what they're looking for is someone different.
Also, as a promoter of the British style of wrestling, Robbie blames the downfall partly on the wrestling industry.
I think British wrestling has lost its identity over the years. I think too many people have swallowed the American bug and neglected where we come from. I think British wrestling is definitely on the way up. We just need a bit of self-belief. The American wrestling business changes because of the television audience want more, or want it nastier or want it more extreme, and that takes it away from me. It takes all the sporting element and aspect away from what I know and what I've been able to do for a living for the last 30 years.
Can we really call wrestling a sport? Alex Shane's clear where he stands, and he's made new strides in changing wrestling's image to give it a new identity.
I think the entertainment industry has always been quite separate from wrestling, which is unfortunate really, and we've managed to change that in Britain for the first time ever. Equity, which is the biggest union for entertainers in the whole of Europe, has just recognised pro wrestlers through the BWC as being members of Equity, and what this allows us to do is actually hold our hands up and say, look, we are art, we are entertainment, we're not trying to convince you we're sport. What the Equity deal allows our wrestlers to do is actually have a union, and that allows wrestlers to get proper insurance, it allows them to get proper pensions, and it also has somebody there to sort of watch out for them as entertainers, and they can no longer be herded around like circus animals. So I think it's very, very good.
Getting the leading entertainment union Equity on board will not only help existing wrestlers, but it's also going to benefit new and upcoming talent like Jay Patel. What about his chances? Head coach Robbie Brookside.
Jay could be as good, if not better, than all the great UK-based Indian wrestlers in the 70s and the 80s, you know, such as Dalabar Singh, Sucha Singh, and a good friend of mine, Kashmir Singh. He has the ability, certainly, the technical side, and also he's got that, you know, he's got the looks as well, you know. And we've done a show in between Christmas and New Year here in Leicester. He's so mild-mannered and quiet, but once his music played, he just turned into this like Melton Road monster. He just went into one. It was great. It was really nice to see.
Obviously you're nervous, and the nerves are going to be there. And then you go out there, and then the people, obviously they're cheering you on, and it's just that excitement. You walk out, and everyone's cheering you on. You look into everyone's eyes, and you just see them smile, and you're just happy to put a smile on their faces. Because when I was in the ring, I was doing the moves, I was looking at the crowd and their emotion. So I was looking forward to, well, I was, how would you say? I was happy about the emotion that I brought out within them and them getting behind me. That was really like interesting, and I think I love that bit because it was my first show and I won't ever forget it. It's just the feeling when you go out there and you come back and you're like, wow, I actually did it. I couldn't sleep that night as well because I was so excited. It's just an electricity, if you will, when you go out there.
And if he keeps coming and he keeps progressing the way he is, you know, Vince McMahon might not have any option other than to, you know, to give him a developmental deal.
I'd like to go as far as the wrestling business takes me. So if it does take me to the WWE, then I'd be happy to go there. If I stay here in the UK, I'll be happy with that. So it's just going with whatever I can get. I'll take every opportunity that comes to me and just progress.
Still waiting to see if he's done enough to clinch a deal with American wrestling company TNA is RJ Singh. After his tryout, has he done enough to impress? Does he have the X factor that they're looking for? Jeff Jarrett and D'Lo Brown.
RJ, I think he's going to have to put on some weight and some size because, you know, most of the guys are at least going to be bigger. You're going to have some strength and stamina. So, but he's definitely got the potential to work on a big stage.
I would say that I could probably put him into our X division right now, and I think he would do well. I don't think he could currently ascend to the championship, but I think he can compete. Now, if he puts on a little weight and works more diligently and hones his craft a little more, I could see him 6 months or a year from now being a vital part of the X division.
So, not quite the A-star report that Mr. Jones was hoping for. Back in the classroom, does he feel that's a fair assessment?
Wrestling has a certain image to it about being quite large. I do understand though, if you're going to be on American TV, you do have to look in a certain way. So, you know, that's the product they want to produce, and that's the image they want you to have.
For the TNA, the search goes on to find the next big Asian wrestling star. But is this the end of the road for Ross?
Who knows, really. I will wrestle for as long as I'm physically able to, and as long as people still enjoy watching me wrestle, and people are more than happy to have me on their shows. In the next couple of years, really just helping British wrestling as much as it can to get back on the map.
And finally, what about Ross's real-life tag team partner, his wife, Mrs. Jones?
She's not the biggest wrestling fan in the world. She thinks that I'm completely off my rocker most of the time with wrestling. I think if British wrestling ended up on the telly, I think she'd be the first person to go around telling everyone that her husband's on TV, so it could go completely the other way.
Those in the industry believe it's simply a matter of time before British wrestlers are back on TV. Alex Shane.
I think with the number of schools in this country right now, the number of promotions, the links with companies such as Equity, and the recognition from the overseas companies that are now pushing British talent to the next level, I think if you're a British Asian looking to get into the wrestling business, it's a really, really positive time to get involved.